The lunch rush pressed down on the city like a restless tide, spilling out from the glass towers of downtown where polished shoes clicked against pavement and the smell of roasted coffee clung to suits and skirts. The heat shimmered off the concrete sidewalks, but one scent cut through the air with far more urgency. Grilled chicken sizzling, bread toasting, lemons being sliced fresh into pitchers of lemonade. Those scents drifted from Sunrise Bites, the white and yellow food truck parked on the corner, its cheerful paintwork made more endearing by the scratches and scuffs that came with years of service. Inside, 25-year-old Emma Collins moved like a whirlwind in the narrow space. Her ponytail had loosened so that strands of blonde hair clung to her damp forehead. Her white t-shirt, already stained with grease and sauce, clung uncomfortably in the late summer heat. But there was no time to worry about that. Not with the line stretching down the block, not with customers impatiently tapping their phones and glancing at their watches. She called out orders, handed out foil-wrapped sandwiches, poured lemonades into plastic cups slick with condensation, and swiped bills with practiced speed. For 2 years, she had run this truck alone, ever since her father had collapsed one cold autumn morning and never risen again. It had been his dream long before it was hers, to create a place where working people could get good food at honest prices. He had once owned a small diner on the edge of town, but when the costs became too heavy, he downsized to a food truck. Emma had worked beside him, wiping down counters, learning the rhythm of cooking for crowds, laughing at his jokes even when they came at the worst times. When he died, she had been left with his legacy and with the responsibility of raising her younger brother, Matt, who had only just started his senior year of high school. She couldn't bear to sell the truck. It wasn't just a business. It was her father's voice whispering in her ear. Food brings people together. The thought gave her strength now as she flipped another sandwich and handed it off with a smile that was more muscle memory than emotion. Efficiency first, pleasantry second. Her eyes skimmed over the crowd in line without registering faces. To her, they were a blur of suits, skirts, ties, and messenger bags. Customers came and went, rushing back to their offices with sandwiches clutched in hand. But near the back of the line stood someone different. He didn't look different, not at first glance. Just another man in a tailored navy suit. His shoes polished, his phone in his hand, his posture radiating the ease of someone used to control. That man was Marcus Blackwell, 32, CEO of Blackwell Development. To the city, his name meant skyscrapers, luxury condos, retail plazas, and profit margins that made headlines. To Emma, in that moment, he was nothing more than another order waiting to be taken. She didn't notice the way he occasionally lifted his eyes from his phone to watch her work, or the way his gaze lingered, as though trying to connect memory with reality. When at last he reached the front of the line, she offered him the same tired, polite smile she gave everyone. "What can I get for you today?" Marcus looked up at the menu scrawled in chalk. Grilled chicken sandwich, pulled pork tacos, veggie wrap, citrus lemonade. Simple food. Honest food. He hesitated. Not because he couldn't decide, but because something about her face tugged at him. He studied the shape of her jaw, the tired kindness in her eyes, the way her smile flickered like it had been practiced one too many times. He had seen that face before, long ago, though younger then, freer, and smiling in ways she wasn't smiling now. "I'll take the grilled chicken sandwich and a lemonade," he said finally. "That'll be $12, Emma replied briskly, already turning to slice bread. He handed her the money. Their fingers brushed, only for a second, but it was enough for Marcus to see her clearly, to place her in the half-forgotten corners of his memory. Recognition washed over him like a wave. "Still remember me?" he asked, his voice low and warm, almost tentative. Emma froze mid-motion. Her head snapped up, her eyes locking onto his, and suddenly the noise of the city dulled. She stared at him, truly seeing him now. Not the expensive suit, not the polished confidence, but the familiar brown eyes, the gentle smile that tugged at something deep inside her. "Marcus," she whispered, her voice fragile. "Marcus Blackwell. Hello, Emma." His tone softened. "I wondered if I'd ever see you again." Behind him, a man shifted impatiently, muttering something about being late for a meeting. The line grew restless, but Emma hardly noticed. She was already back in the hallways of her high school, hearing the chatter of teenagers, seeing Marcus as he had been, tall, lanky, awkward, always clutching a notebook, always sitting alone. He hadn't been the confident man standing before her now. He had been invisible to most. Invisible, except to her. "You probably don't remember," Marcus said, glancing toward the crowd, his voice carrying both hesitation and hope. "But you used to eat lunch with me, when no one else would." Emma's throat tightened. "Of course I remember. You were writing that novel, the one about the boy who could talk to trees." Marcus felt his heart stutter. She remembered. For weeks during their senior year, Emma, popular, busy, admired, had carried her tray across the cafeteria to sit with him. She listened as he read aloud his clumsy chapters, encouraged him when he mumbled apologies for wasting her time, shared her sandwiches when he forgot his lunch money. To Marcus, each of those moments had been a lifeline. To Emma, they had simply felt right. "You told me I had potential," Marcus continued, "even when my stories were terrible. You encouraged me to keep going." Emma blinked, and suddenly tears blurred her vision. She remembered how lonely he'd looked, how weighed down he had been by his parents' messy divorce, how he'd flinched when others snickered as they passed his table. She had seen something fragile but special in him, a quiet intelligence that only needed someone to believe in it. "What happened to the writing?" she asked softly, though the customers behind him grew more restless by the second. "I never stopped," Marcus admitted. 3 novels now under a pen name. Nothing huge, but published. And I built the business too. Turns out believing in yourself, especially when someone else once believed in you first, takes you far." Someone behind him cleared his throat loudly. "Some of us have jobs to get back to." Emma startled, cheeks flushing. She hurried to wrap his sandwich, fill his lemonade, and slide them across the counter. "I'm so sorry. Here you go." Marcus took the food, but he didn't leave. Instead, he stepped aside, waiting quietly as Emma pushed through the remaining orders, her hands moving on autopilot while her mind buzzed. When the last customer walked away and silence finally returned to the sidewalk, Marcus approached the window again. "Emma," he said softly, "can we talk?" "Really talk?" She hesitated, fatigue heavy in her limbs. "I only have a few minutes before I need to prep for dinner." "Then let me help." He removed his jacket, rolled up his sleeves. "I remember you teaching me how to bus tables at your dad's restaurant." "I can handle a rag and a broom," she almost laughed. The CEO of Blackwell Development ready to mop her food truck? But he wasn't joking. So for the next hour, they worked side by side, Marcus scrubbing counters, Emma restocking. And all the while, words flowed. She told him about her father's death, about inheriting the truck, about the exhausting grind of 18-hour days. He listened with that same focused intensity she remembered from high school, when she'd recite debate speeches and he'd hang on to every word. "Why a food truck?" he asked eventually. Emma wiped her hands on a towel. "Dad always said good food brings people together. After he died, I couldn't sell it. This truck, it's his dream. His belief that honest work and kindness could be enough." "And is it?" Marcus asked gently. She hesitated, staring at the worn floor. "Some days, barely." Something inside Marcus shifted. He saw again the girl who had once seen him, really seen him, when no one else cared. And now she was struggling to keep her father's dream alive. He couldn't walk away. "Emma," he said, setting the rag down, "I want to ask you something. Hear me out before you say no." She gave him a wary look. "What?" "Blackwell Development is opening a new mixed-use space. Retail, residential, restaurants. We need an anchor food tenant. I want that to be you." Emma laughed in disbelief. "Marcus, I can't afford rent in one of your buildings. I can barely keep up with truck permits." "You wouldn't pay rent," he replied quickly. "You'd be an equity partner. We'd provide space, equipment, marketing. You'd bring your recipes, your vision, your heart, the thing that makes this food special. You want to go into business with me?" "I want to invest in someone I believe in," Marcus said. "The same way you once believed in me." Her eyes filled with tears. "Why would you do this for me?" He held her gaze. "Because 15 years ago, you sat at my lunch table when you could have sat anywhere else. You listened to my terrible stories and made me feel like I mattered. That kindness changed the course of my life. Success isn't just money, Emma. It's lifting the people who lifted you. You gave me confidence when I had none. Now I want to give you the chance to grow your father's dream." 6 months later, Emma stood in the kitchen of Sunrise Cafe. The white and yellow decor honored the truck, which still operated downtown, but this new space bustled with life. Employees in matching aprons called out orders, the air hummed with conversation, and the smell of grilled food filled the room. Her younger brother, now a college freshman, stopped by often, proudly telling his friends that his sister was a successful restaurateur. Marcus kept his word. He handled the business, the contracts, the expansion. She handled the food, the people, the heart. Together they had built something bigger than either had imagined. On one wall hung framed photos of the food truck's early days, Emma and her father smiling, the original chalkboard menu, a teenage Emma laughing with her brother. Customers lingered, not just for the food, but for the warmth that radiated from the place. And Marcus still came, not as a boss or investor, but as a partner, a friend. Sometimes he brought his laptop and wrote at a corner table. Sometimes he helped wipe tables at closing. Sometimes he and Emma stayed long after the last customer left, talking quietly, remembering. One evening, as they stacked chairs, Emma looked at him and said softly, "I never thanked you properly." "For believing in me," Marcus smiled. "You thanked me 15 years ago, when you chose to see something in a kid who couldn't see it in himself. Everything good since then started with your kindness." Emma looked around the cafe, at the photos, at the staff, at the laughter that still echoed even after closing. The food truck that had once been her symbol of struggle was now the foundation for something thriving. But more than that, it was proof that kindness given freely could ripple outward across years, returning when least expected. Because sometimes the smallest choices, a seat at a lonely lunch table, a few kind words, a shared sandwich, grow into something powerful. Sometimes the person you encourage becomes the one who encourages you when you are close to giving up. Sometimes success is not measured in dollars, but in the lives touched by belief and compassion. Emma met Marcus's eyes, her chest full. The circle had closed. Kindness had come back, stronger than ever, and she knew then that her father had been right all along. Good food did bring people together, but even more than food, it was kindness that nourished the soul.